Hi guys, welcome to another YouTube video of mine now. Today we're going to be talking about uh, the tender place. This is part 2 of uh, the series of lectures that we're doing on Ted Hughes. This poem's called The Tender Place, and I'll read it first. I'll read the whole poem first and then we'll get into details. Your temples, where the hair crowded in, were the tender place. Once to check, I dropped a file across the electrodes of a 12-volt battery. It exploded like a grenade. Somebody wired you up? Somebody pushed the lever? They crashed the thunderbolt into your skull in their bleached coats? With blenched faces, they hovered again to see how you were in your straps? Whether your teeth were still whole? The hand on the calibrated lever, again feeling nothing except feeling nothing, pushed to feel some squirm of sensation? Terror was the cloud of you. Waiting for these lightnings, I saw an oak limb sheared at a bang. You, your daddy's leg. How many seizures did you suffer, this god to grab you by the roots of the hair? The report escaped back into the clouds. What went up vaporized. Where lightning rods wept copper and the nerve threw off its skin like a burning child, scampering out the bomb flesh, they dropped you. A rigid, bent bit of wire across the Boston City grid. The lights in the Senate House dipped as your voice dived inwards, right through the bolt-hole basement. Came up, years later, overexposed like an X-ray brain map, still dark patched with the scorched earth scars of your retreat. And your words? Faces reversed from the lights, holding in their entrails. Of course, it's a very difficult read, and I'm not saying that in this series of lectures this is the first time I would have read. This is the only time I'd read it. I'll still go line by line when we get into the details. But because in the series of lectures, this is the first time I have read this poem. Let's discuss overall the tone of this poem and how painstaking is it on every level, because he understands, right? And despite the fact that it's really gory, because the process of ECT itself is very gory, as he has described, that where her hair would collect, the very soft, tender place, that's where they shocked her. And he once tried with some battery or something like that at home, experimenting how that feels or how that kind of electric power is, until he threw in something and he realized that perhaps that piece of wood or whatever, it just got burnt or chiseled in a second. And so that was almost the power or the value of the electric shocks that were given to her. And so by doing that, they dropped her voice. And then of course he's explained other things that she may have told him over time, because in her own journals also, there's a place where she's mentioned that while she was being given that therapy, she almost felt like she'll lose her teeth, because it was a 2000-watt electric shock that she was being treated with. And so when she was, and obviously like over the years there may have been times when she would have recollected that experience with Hughes, and in her journals also there's a lot of editing and censoring that's been done, but Hughes, being her husband, would have known a lot more than we do. So in this poem, he's just explained the grievance that he has for those people also, that they strapped her in a chair, they just checked her teeth if they're intact, they checked her face, stuff like that. Okay, fine, are her teeth in place, is everything else in okay? But basically what they were doing was they dropped her voice, because that therapy did change who Plath was as a person. Some also say that the scar that she had on her cheek, it wasn't because of her suicide attempt, but it was because of the therapy that she was put through after attempting suicide. Because remember that the ECT therapy, that ECT, the electroconvulsive therapy, was not her choice. It was something that she was put into, because they assumed that that would fix her. Which is of course something problematic, and which is why he has also spoken about the fact that that it did of course come up years later. Because for example, when somebody is, and he at the end of the day, he was still somebody who had some level of empathy, right? Like for example, the whole animal part, etc., etc. So that's why he did understand how that kind of an event may have altered the course of her life for forever. So that's why he does say that it came up years later, in the form of an overexposed X-ray brain map still dark patched with scorched earth scars of your retreat. Now here a lot of people might say that, he was talking about her, the way that she wrote, etc., etc. But perhaps more than the way that she wrote or anything else, he's also talking about what she eventually ended up doing. Because Hughes being a disloyal or unloyal person is another thing, but but Plath herself committing suicide is another thing. And that perhaps came from, like, if a person's alive, they're alive, let them live. She was not allowed to live, right? In those moments when she was tied to a chair and given electric shocks, because they assumed that that's going to fix her or fix the way she feels about something. The tender place is of course something that's very disturbing, and once we get into a line by line breakdown of this poem in the next series of lectures, you would probably realize that it's one of the most disturbing reads in English literature. But I think this poem by Hughes is a great example of how he could sometimes put himself in the shoes of another person, and more than the shoes of another person, I think again here his admiration for his wife, whether he loved her actually or not is another question, but his admiration for his wife, because he could see, as we can read in the poem, he could see how strong she was. He's not blaming her for ending her life the way that she did. He's just saying that, yeah, of course, like, when they made you feel dead once while you were alive, then this is how it kind of, the whole dark patch, this is how it surfaced up years later. An X-ray of what happened to you back then. If you like this video, please don't forget to give me a thumbs up as well as subscribe to my YouTube channel, and yeah, don't forget to do the task linked to this lecture too. Excited to be doing this whole thing on the tender place with you guys, and also, yeah, grab a tissue box maybe for upcoming lectures.